Testing lang po. Practice for tomorrow. Yun. Very good. All right. Look at that. Ah? Di ba?
Live ka?
Matindi, di ba?
Naka-live ka?
Oh, live.
Sa YouTube?
Sa YouTube.
Okay.
Just trial. Tinitignan ko lang. Pwede pala, oh.
Okay,
Nag-add ako ng iba pa eh. Hindi pa sila nag-add eh.
malinaw Ewan
Oh,
ko lang
malinaw.
marami na tayo.
Oo. Galing na.
So, pag marami na siguro, baka mag-iba na yung quality. Sana wag naman.
Oh. Tapos naisulat ko rin yun, no? Tingnan mo, meron ako niyan, no? Di ba?
Okay man ba yan show at Papa Jeb? Okay. August 22, 7 p.m.
Oh, di ba? Oh, di ba?
Parang nasa newsroom
Siyempre. Di ba? Yun, no? Si Aryongski nanonood. Nagta-trial pa, hindi pa masyadong marunong. Ang ano lang, Aryong, hindi siya pwede pala ng dalawa. Kasi bala ko, Facebook and YouTube. Para mag-Facebook and YouTube, parang kailangan i-upgrade. Aryong. Ayaw eh. Paano ko kaya i-add ang Facebook? Kasi trinay ko kanina, sabi niya sa akin, hindi, ano siya, need upgrade. Aryong. Pero kagandahan nito, yan, na-try ko yun ng YouTube. Kita mo?
Ayos
Oh, yun, no? Oh, tatlo tayo.
Gumagana na.
Diba?
Gumagana na.
StreamYard ka?
StreamYard. Pero hindi siya, YouTube pa lang to. Nung isasama ko sana yung Facebook, tawag dito, nung sinasama ko yung Facebook,
di pwede,
parang kailangan niya mag-upgrade.
YouTube lang.
Pero actually, pwede talaga siya mag-double. Nga lang, kailangan siyang i-upgrade.
So, itong nandito sa taas, nakikita mo yun, di ba?
Alin yun?
May mga ganun-ganun pa.
Siyempre! Kita mo, gumagana pa yan, no?
Nadaan ba dyan yung
May langaw na dadaan dyan.
Hindi, yung Your Mess Lunch.
Yung nga pala, dapat maglagay tayo ng screen. Your Mess Kitchen.
Ang dami pa pinahirit kanina.
Pag sponsor, dapat may libreng lunch, di ba?
Sponsor. Dapat may libreng lunch. Di ba?
Live ba to?
Naka-live.
Hello po sa mga viewers.
Hello po sa mga viewers. Nagpa-practice lang po kami. Nag-i-improve na. Courtesy of Aryongski.
Thank you, Aryongski.
Kanina, nung sinisimulan ko siya, nung pagbinasa mo talaga siya, pwede kang magdalawa. Facebook and YouTube. Pero nung clinic ko yun, parang naghihingi siya ng naghihingi siya ng update.
May bayad na yun pag...
Oo nga may bayad na, sayang. Di ba? Naka-live tayo sa Facebook, tapos naka-live tayo sa YouTube, no?
Ito yung unang sinabi ko sa'yo, StreamYard
Ito ba yung unang-unang mo sinabi sa akin?
Yun yung unang-una. And then Streamlab. Since it's working now, pwede bang mag-chat dito?
Yes, you can try. You can try. So, pwede natin gamitin to sa Sunday Fun Day.
Oo.
Kita nyo, meron pang backbayan, balikbayan with the help of OWAD. Tas dito sa ano, bukas ang lalagay ko, sponsored by Your Miss Kitchen.
Hindi nagsasalita si Yorme.
Ayan. Ay, hindi siya nag-a-appear pag nag-chat ka. Hindi siya nag-a-appear
Hindi.
sa screen.
Bakit?
Private.
Hindi bakit si R yung meron? Hindi, naka-private chat ka. Sa private chat
Private
ka
chat
naman,
ako?
hindi doon.
Saan
Hindi
ako
doon. Sa
Naka-private chat.
comment.
Sa comment ka pala dapat.
Pero kung chat, private lang yon sa akin tsaka sa'yo.
Saan ako hindi ako pwedeng
Ayun ang comment sa taas. Comment sa kanan.
Sa taas? Hindi ko
Comment
kita.
sa kanan.
Saan?
Wala akong nakikita.
I-minimize mo. Kasi si Aryong Ski nakapag-chat eh. Nakapag-chat si Aryong.
Hindi naman siya kasama sa broadcast eh.
Comment.
Nakikita mo ba? Hindi.
Nasaan? Ay, masyadong palitin mo. Masyado siyang wide. I-minimize mo.
Ano na lang. Picturean ko tapos i-send ko sa'yo. Kung ano
Sige. Ano ba nangyari? Ba't hindi kayo makapag-chat? Bakit si Aryong meron?
Si Aryong ay
siguro. Parang napanood ko kasi kanina eh. Pagka yata kasama ko kayo sa hindi yata kayo pwedeng mag-private chat lang yata. Pero tingnan natin. Hindi ko matandaan.
So, magbabasa lang tayo ng comments dyan. At least malinaw.
Nakikita ko yung kay Ma'am Avic na chat.
Saan mo nakita?
Hello.
Siya din.
Ako, nakita ko rin sa private
Ganun
chat.
yung try natin yung share screen. Pakita ko yung screen ko. Ganun.
Share screen, sige.
May version ng good computer. Dapat mas maganda daw pag dalawa.
Ano yan?
Ay, bakit ka parang dalawa lang tayo, Ma'am Avic, ang nagkaka-chat ata. Sinubukan ko
Ganun?
mag-chat. Oo, para sumagot lang ako sa ano mo.
Ano ka?
Sa
Pwede rin ako. Ayan ako.
Private chat, isa. Kanino nun? Okay.
Merong comment. Hindi niya ba nakikita yung comment? Ito yung comment, Paano ko ba yan yung comment? Paano ko
Ba't hindi ako
ipapakita?
makapag-comment?
Gumamit yung mga na-invite ng ibang phone.
Ay, ganun.
Gumamit yung mga na-invite ng ibang phone. Wag daw to ginagamit nyo. Sabi ni Aryong
So,
Ski.
kailangan ng cellphone.
Kasi ayun ang
para makapag-comment. Ganun?
Sabi niya. Ito yung
magpupunta ako sa YouTube tapos magko-comment ako.
Mabubuksan nyo ba sa YouTube?
Oo. Ayan, Practice live. Ayan na ako.
Ayun nga, naka-live tayo.
Ayan, nag-message na.
So pwede ka pala dito mag-chat. Publicly.
Pero dapat. Sana pwedeng sagutin mo yung mga Okay. Kailangan meron ka talagang tagabasa ng comment.
That's right.
Tapos tagasagot. Ayan, nag-message na.
So pwede ka pala dito mag-chat. Publicly.
Pero dapat. Sana pwedeng sagutin mo yung mga Okay. Kailangan meron ka talagang tagabasa ng comment.
Galing, no? So meron na tayo. Ang
Okay na yan.
Paano siya ngayon si Conjem isasama dyan.
Eh di ganyan din, katulad ng ginawa mo sa akin, bibigyan mo lang siya ng link.
Ng link message, no?
Oo. Ano mo na lang, i-PM
Hello,
mo na,
Mark
try.
Ramos.
Si ano ba yan? Si Ninong yata yan eh.
Sininong ba yun?
Parang.
Mark
This
Ramos,
is
good morning.
testing for StreamYard.
O yun. Si Aryongski, oh. Yan si
Kailangan mo
Aryongski.
pa bang, umalis na si ano, ayan, pag ganyan, dalawa lang.
O, di
Ganyan
ba?
kaya interview lang naman eh. So, pwede
Interview,
ka na
oh.
nga sa bahay mo.
Hmm.
Bakit kailangan mo pang lumakas? Sining sinabi mo?
Si Aryongski, around the world, meron siya. O yun, si Ninong Ramos nga.
Hello, Ninong. Merry Christmas.
Ninong, salamat ha. Grabe, dami na nating subscriber.
Magkano na? Magkano no?
Makikita mo dun ah. Almost 500 na.
Uy, 437 na agad.
Hmm.
Galing
Galing,
Hindi pa nga
ginawa
tayo.
ano, thank you, Ninong. 437 subscriber. Gagawin niya daw 500 yan this week.
Hindi, gagawin daw ng 1,000.
1,000.
Galing, di ba?
Meron akong
Ano ba yung kulang natin? Avic, ano pa?
saan mo ba pwedeng ilagay dyan yung ano, yung logo mo?
Logo ng, ng Cayman Bayanihan?
Oo.
Ano, hindi pwede. Kung mag-add ka ng logo, nakalagay dito, mag-upgrade.
Okay.
Ang pwede rin, yung background. Pwede siyang gawin Cayman Bayanihan background. Hello, Ninong! Kumusta? Alam mo, delayed siya. Nag-live ako dito sa phone. Delayed siya ng a few seconds.
Siyempre, hindi naman magiging live na live yan. Libre lang. Ikaw talaga.
Alam mo nung kaganda ng StreamYard, Evic? Ano siya, hindi mo siya i-download. Gumagamit lang siya ng internet browser. So hindi siya kumakain ng memory, hindi siya kumakain masyadong internet din. Sabi niya nung pinanood ko. Kaya mas maganda ito kaysa doon sa isa.
Tama.
Galing-galing ni ano. Ano pa kaya pwede natin gawin? Actually, pwede pang mag-ano ng mga video and everything, pero kailangan i-upgrade.
Pwede, halimbawa dito sa isang screen mo, video yun, yung tao dito mag-share. Parang nakikita mo, ginaano ko pa eh. Parang dito sa isang screen ko, doon mo ipa-play yung video, tapos ikaw nandun ka sa kabila, tapos nagre-react ka. Ganon. Kasi pwede share screen. Ikaw ba yan? Pinokus mo yung sarili mo?
Pwede siyang, kung ba, nagsasalita si Conjen, ganyan.
Para kung
nagsasalita si Conjen. Pag naman nagsasalita, ayan, pwedeng ganyan, 3. Halimbawa, ikaw si Conjen, kiklik ko ikaw. Ikaw lang. Yan.
Pwedeng siya lang. Tapos pwedeng malaki siya, tapos sa gilid ka.
Halimbawa, si Kuya Art na magsasalita. Alam mo si Alex, kamukha niya si Art eh.
Oo nga.
Ba? Hindi ko ba nakikita si Kuya Art in person?
Hindi mo nakikita?
Hindi. Yung ano lang, yung ano niya tag dito, yung FB account niya lang, yung picture niya ron, yun lang nakikita ko, pero yung in personal hindi. Ganon? Manipis din? Panort?
Kung sasabihin niyo, magalit sa atin.
Panort, hindi ano.
Hindi, pwede kayong magkapatid. Makapal buhok nun.
Paano ko isi-select kung kayong dalawa lang ang ano, no? Paano kaya yun?
Oh, Brad. Lalabas ako, sandali lang. Hindi, may kumakatok. Oh. Sige.
Ano pa kaya ang pwede nating ano? Kasi kung titingnan mo, yan, pwede din yung mga banner. Pwede ako magdagdag ng banner actually. Anong gusto mo ilagay ko? Pwede ba magdagdag ng ano, words? Anong gusto mo? Halimbawa, example.
Sabihin mo, parang see you on Sunday, Monday, gano'n. Ano yung dadagdag lang yun?
Oh, dadagdag siya. It's either, yan niya, umiikot kang ganyan, or hindi. Ayan. Ayan siya. O kaya naman, i-hide siya ulit. Balik yung kanina. Nasaan na?
Ito na yung bagong sinulat mo. Nagsulat ka ba ng bago?
Ay, di mo nakita?
Hindi.
Ayan o. Yun o, see you on Sunday.
Yan. Yung parang ano lang. Lalabas lang na ano.
Ano gusto mo ilagay?
Oo.
Pwede ka magdagdag. Pwede mo ibalik sa dati. I-show mo yun. Yan. So, yung ibang nag-ano, di ba? Yung parang tawag doon? Yung ginawa mo? Adlib. Ano yun? Yung convert mo yung Tagalog sa English, ano yan?
Ano sabi mo? Yung nagsa-subtitle or
pinatigil ko yung ano, yung gumagalaw, oh. Di ba? Pinatigil ko.
Oo.
Pwede rin yun. Pwedeng wala, pwedeng meron. Tapos pwedeng ibalik. At pwede rin gumawa ng bago. Halimbawa, breaking news. Breaking news, ha?
Pwede mo daw i-click yung nagme-message, lalabas sa screen.
Breaking news.
Yung parang yung comment.
Nanalo na si Jojit games ng 400 US. Diba? You know, breaking news.
Daddy, we're live on YouTube. You're right?
No, I'm constipated really badly. Oh, come on, man. I need to shift it.
You need fiber. Basahin mo yung yung message niya, yung comment niya.
May comment ba siya? Teka.
Bakit hindi mo nakikita? Ganyan lang, kita naman lahat.
Pwede mo ring i-click yung nagme-message lalabas sa screen. Paano?
Paano daw? Paano yun?
Ayun o.
Yung parang shout out daw, gano'n. Lalabas sa Mag-message nga ako.
Galing. Galing pala nito
Nice.
Tapos pwedeng alisin. Galing. Breaking news, nanalo na si Jojit sa games. No more 400 US dollar.
Haha.
Okay?
Pakita mo sa screen yan ang message. Comment ko pala.
Ano naman, dali. Mag-comment ka na ba?
Galing ng practice mo, ah.
Wala pa. Wala pa eh. Yun.
Delay.
Ba? Yun ba to? Yun o. Happy anniversary!
Ang ganda, ah.
O, di ba?
Teka
Tingnan
lang,
mo.
wala ka ng
Picture
picture.
pa kayo. Make picture pa kayo.
Oo.
Galing.
Oo, bilib na kami.
Wala, nagpa-practice pa tayo eh. Ano ka ba naman? Ano pa kaya yung makakalimutan natin?
Ano pa pong ituturo no, Mr. Aryungski?
Aryunski, ano pa yung susunod? Ano pa ba itong mga nandito?
Baka may
Edit.
pumala sa'yo. Nanalo na si Jojut sa games.
Tapos alam mo ba na nung simula nito, Ivy, yung banner, merong tinatawag na, anong tawag doon? Tawag dito. Yung hindi pa siya nagsisimula yung nakapost na sa YouTube. Halimbawa, ang show niya 7:30 ng gabi.
Oo, yung parang
Meron na siya kagad na basta clinic ko na yun, lalabas na yun, ang nakalagay bayanihan.
Parang
Pero ang problema ko, hindi pa ako marunong maglagay ng mga words na please tune in later around. Hindi pa ako marunong. Kaya kung titingnan mo yung first nito, ang makikita mo doon yung logo natin. Yan. All right. Pag-aralan natin ngayon yung paano siya i-connect sa Facebook.
Nakakatuwa naman, malapit na maging 500.
Galing ni Ninong.
Daming followers ni Ninong eh.
Tapos hindi ko pa nga na-check yung YouTube natin eh kasi doon mo makikita yung ilan na yung webinar na pala.
Inaato niyang kang webinar.
Anti-drug trading or prostitution. When I was in Jordan,
Yung sa government?
September 2005 to August
Paano kaya siya i-share, no?
2012.
Baka pwede siyang i-share. Yung idadagdag siya rito sa live natin.
90% of whom were undocumented.
I-open mo siya sa dyan sa Mac mo, sa laptop mo, tapos i-share screen mo.
Paano?
I-open mo siya dyan sa Mac.
Yung live.
Ano ba yung Facebook?
Yung sa Facebook, oo.
Oo. Tapos mag-share screen ka. Malapit nang mahinog yung mangga. Hinog na pala. Gagawa na ako ng ice cream.
Very good.
Anong oras ba yung bukas? Uy, bukas nga pala. Ang dami mong gagawin bukas.
Hindi matutuloy yung Sabato.
Kasi umuulan.
Umuulan, tsaka hindi makapagkarga ata.
Anong gagawin ko sa ice cream?
Pwede pa rin naman tayo magkita. Ano ka ba? Pwede tayong yung mga members agahan sa So ito na, nandito ako sa anong gagawin ko?
Ayan sa baba. Ano ba nakikita sa baba na mute, stop cam.
Naka-zoom
tapos,
sila eh.
Share screen.
You mean dito sa StreamYard?
Oo, sa stream. Sa StreamYard.
Ano gagawin ko? Yung share screen.
Oo, share screen.
Tapos?
Di tignan natin kung may share.
Share screen. Choose.
Ang ganda ng quality niya. Tignan mo, ang ganda ko.
Loko ka.
No, ang ganda ng quality nung ano.
Ano to? Chrome tab. Ayaw niya mag-share.
Oo nga, ayaw eh. Yung ski, ayaw mag-share screen. Baka kailangan meron kang, hindi. Ilagay mo muna kami sa gilid. Kaya, gawin mo yun. O kaya ikaw lang.
Okay.
Ikaw lang muna. Tapos mag-share screen ka. Ayaw pa rin? Pipili ka kung ano yung i-share mo eh. Diba? Nakikita mo lumabas
Oh,
ba?
yun. Ito.
Piliin mo yung may sa... Oh, ayan na.
So, anong gagawin ko ngayon?
Ayan na. Nakikita ko na siya. Napapanood na. Dapat lakihan mo yung video na yon noon. Yan. I-full screen mo siya. Tanggalin mo muna yung happy anniversary.
Females from the zone came in search of jobs in the vast palm oil plantation, while some of our women were trafficked as sex workers for the brotels in Labuan and Kotak, Kinabalu. The International Migration Office
Okay
estimates
yan ha. Galing.
Galing, marunong na tayo!
Hindi mo na kailangan magbayad. Bibigyan na lang natin ng ice cream si Aryongski.
Oh, si Aryongski, bibigyan natin ng ano.
500,000. From time to time, the Malaysians engage in massive crackdowns of illegals. At any
Ano nga ba yung
time,
pinag-uusapan nila?
there are from
Ano
3,500
pinag-uusapan nila?
Pabulitan ko itong banner.
Filipino detainees in
Trafficking in persons and illegal recruitment.
Kotak, Kinabalu, Tawau, and Sandakan. Malaysian law deems overstaying a criminal offense. And in the 3 detention centers, they have set up makeshift immigration courts to facilitate
Grabe, no?
sentencing.
Galing.
Matagal na nangyayari yan eh.
Penalty of
Ah?
beating or lashing.
Matagal na nangyayari yan sa Malaysia. Ang daan yan sa Mindanao. Yung sila dumadaan.
Ayun, totoo yan. No?
Bearable. But they uncontrollably
Pasipad yung mga babae, yung iba, ginagawang prostitute doon.
in what we may call revolving door migration, largely due to the dearth of employment and livelihood opportunities in our own backyard, especially for the poor and the dispossessed. Our main illegal imports to Sabah, brought there by speedboats or kumpigs from Sulu or Tawi-Tawi, are blue silk cigarettes, 2, shabu or poor man's cocaine, 3, turtle eggs.
Biro mo, no? Meron tayong ganito, oh.
These also
Okay na. Very good.
have tough environmental laws in the trading and consumption of pawikan meat and eggs. And the fourth export we have to Sabah are trafficked persons bound for the palm oil plantations.
Pwede mo ngayong i-ano to. Paano natin ito
The
i-share?
latest assignment
Sa YouTube,
for
i-share mo sa
was
Facebook.
posted to the US was in Kuwait from June
Ate Eli.
to April 2018. And in 1 year, our polo and the
Meron
embassy
akong pinatapos.
2,500 to 5,500 runaways sought our help. More than 10% of the runaways are underage women from Mindanao, particularly Maguindanao, Cotabato, usually with assumed identities and whose wages have been jacked up by the recruiters when they applied for the delayed registration of birth certificate. And Currently, the restrictions in the Philippines on the deployment of household service workers to Kuwait have been lifted, and a free market situation is now prevailing in the SW market. Employers pay the Kuwait recruitment agencies about Kuwaiti dinar 1,200, is equivalent to around 3,600 US dollars per HW deployed to their homes. Because of the stiff and steep fees charged by the agents, employers who became dissatisfied with the services of the domestic worker within the guaranteed period of 2 months either sell them to another employer, return them to the agency, and demand refund, in which case the agency sell them to another employer, or worse, drive them cross-border to another GCC country, usually Saudi Arabia, and sell her to a relative or another.
Shinare ko sa Facebook.
These practices are common and tolerated in Kuwait, although the Kuwait Anti-Trafficking Persons Law prohibits such acts. Cases of rape, sexual harassment, severe maltreatment, and unattended serious health conditions are
Wait,
common
mag
and account for
open mo yung ano. Ay,
uh,
bukas na pala yung YouTube.
Did you see Ate
many
Avic?
of
Shinare ko
those
sa Facebook.
or severely maltreated were able to escape more than a week or month after the incident, leaving hardly any traces or physical evidence of the rape or maltreatment perpetrated on their person, and rendering their case weak. The medical reports obtained are often weak or negative. No wonder that many of the wards decide not to pursue any case against the perpetrators, despite embassy assurances of legal assistance and food support. Another obstacle to the expeditious resolution of cases is the situation wherein the employer files both absconding and theft cases against the worker just out of spite or just to get back at her. The employer may feel aggrieved and agraviado since he shelled out so much to get her services. Once the embassy endorses a case of an OFW charged with theft, she is more often than not detained. Reflecting the capricious nature of Kuwaiti law enforcement, the period of detention varies from one day to as long as 6 months. There are even a few instances where the police allows the employer to take back custody of the worker, even though the worker has complaints of her own against the employer. The HSW is then placed in a quandary or catch-22 situation. If she is not endorsed to the police, her case doesn't move forward, and she cannot go home since she has a travel ban. If she decides to undergo a police investigation, she will be detained without a definite release date. I concede to the proposition put forth by Kuwaitis in their defense that most of them are fair and just and gentle employers. But during my stay, as I said, there were more than 2,500 to 6,000 runaways in a year who ran away due to physical abuse, unjust treatment, maltreatment, and sexual assault. And we may not know the number of those who simply endure the pain and suffering just to be able to keep on supporting their family in the Philippines. I wish to cite an excerpt of a report from the Center for Human Rights Policy of the Harvard Kennedy School, which goes, human trafficking has been going on for centuries. From the 1880s to the 1930s, the British trafficked Indians to Malaysia to work in rubber
Inalis ko yung dalawa tayo, siya lang.
as well as Chinese to work.
Galing, no?
Like all other businesses, the goal of traffickers is to maximize profits by limiting expenses. There are, however, marked differences in trafficking practices in the olden days and at present. While trafficking before takes a long time before profits are realized and was a relatively expensive venture, modern-day trafficking can be engaged in at negligible cost and at a faster pace and turnover. To illustrate, African slaves shipped to the Americas in the mid-1800s could be purchased for a global weight average of between $9,500 to $11,000.
Trafficking in person.
Roughly 15% to 20% annual return on investment. Today's slaves sell for a global weight average of $500 and can generate 300 to 500% or more returns on investment. Whereas slaves before are mainly exploited in the agricultural sector, sugarcane plantations in Cuba, cotton plantation in the American South, modern-day trafficking victims are exploited in countless industries, such as coffee or tea cultivation, minerals and precious stones extraction, sweatshop factories, sex dens, and nightclubs. In a globalized economy, products and services are shipped worldwide, resulting in vaster trading activities and enormous profitability. At this point, I wish to acknowledge the contribution of the fellow prosecutor of Attorney Flores in combating human trafficking, Prosecutor Darlene Pajareto, who was here in DC in 2019 as a Humphrey Fellow and Fulbright Scholar. He was with our consular team during a consular outreach mission in Virginia Beach, and she gave a presentation on human trafficking before a gathering of U.S. officials, civil society, and the Filipino-American community. Thank you so much, and may the focus group discussion achieve its stated objectives.
Thank you, DCM Villa. Very inspiring words indeed. Your institutional memory of what the Filipinos experience from the hands of traffickers and illegal recruiters is worth, it's really agitating. And in fact, I've seen one of the comments already that the report was quite heartbreaking. And this is one of the objectives of our webinar today, that you'll be able to, at least at first instance, identify what are the red flags of trafficking and illegal recruitment, and see that the role of the Filipino communities, the Philippine government, and the rest, their roles are indispensable in fighting trafficking, knowing that it is an international phenomenon. So thank you again, DCM Villa. And to proceed, we would like to call on our Assistant Labor Attaché to establish the House rules for tonight's webinar.
Good evening, everyone. Before we proceed, I just would like to read the 3 objectives of this webinar for tonight. First, we have to identify what constitutes trafficking in persons and illegal recruitment. Number 2, identify the red flag indicators for trafficking in persons and illegal recruitment. Number 3 is to identify the rights and government services available for those who are victims of trafficking and illegal recruitment. We have very short house rules po with regards to our Q&A after the presentation of our 2 speakers. Yung mga nasa Zoom, pwede po kayong maglagay ng yung mga questions o katanungan sa ating chat room. At yung mga nasa FB Live, pwede kayong mag-type ng inyong mga comments para sa inyong mga katanungan at ito po isasagutin ng ating mga speakers. Thank you po.
Thank you, Assistant Labor Attaché Josephine Baromeo. So let us proceed to our 2 speakers this evening, this morning, this afternoon. We are lucky to have 2 strong lady lawyers with us whose advocacies reach the different parts of the world. So without further ado, let me first introduce one of our speakers. She used to be a practicing lawyer specializing in election laws, but in 2016, she joined the government as the head secretariat of the Joint Monitoring Committee of the GRP-NDFP stocks. It has been suspended, but we're hoping that it will continue soonest. And this lady was instrumental in monitoring the both the actions of the government of the Republic of the Philippines and the National Democratic Front during the time of the negotiations, which ran from 2016 to 2017. Now, he heads the licensing division of the POEA. So kung may mga katanungan kayo sa lahat ng mga recruitment agency, anong nangyayari sa kanila, this is the right person. She is the right person to ask. And let me introduce you formally, Attorney Ria Lano.
Nanonood po ngayon, magandang umaga naman po dito sa Pilipinas. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat sa United States and sa Caribbean Islands. At sa mga nanonood po ngayon, magandang umaga naman po dito sa Pilipinas. Nilinervous po ako at natatakot dahil sa sinabi ni BCM Media. Ang bigat-bigat. I hope na makapagbigay linaw po ako mamaya. I can enlighten you sa presentation ko. So I'll just make it really realistic, practical later. So maraming salamat po for inviting me.
Yeah, we will now ask Attorney Ria Lano to make her presentation.
Okay. Akala ko i-introduce niyo po si Attorney May. Sige po. So, let me start. First and foremost, magpapakilala po ako. Ako po si Ria Corazon Lano ng PUEA. Bago lang po ako, I think 2 years na po ako sa PUEA. So I'm a new blood. And kagaya ni Labat Angging, ni Fiscal May, relentless for change po tayo, no? So tayo yung mga in-appoint ni Presidente to contribute change, no? Sa ating bansa. And how are we doing so far? I guess hindi pa nawawala yung pagiging idealistic natin. So, personally, naniniwala po ako na the only way to curb illegal recruitment is if we streamline the processes, no, ng gobyerno. Lalo na dun sa PUEA kasi yung ating mga kababayang Pilipino gustong makalabas agad ng bansa in the shortest time possible. No? So, yun po ang kailangan nating i-address. And it's a continuous challenge for us. And to promote and protect also, to promote the ethical license recruitment agencies. Yun ang pinaka-importante sa lahat. And to weed out, tanggalin natin yung mga unethical license recruitment agencies. Prosecute the illegal recruiters.
Go live on both Facebook Live and YouTube Live at the same time using one really easy to use tool. But before we do that, let's roll the intro. My name is Ravel Samus. Alright, so welcome to my screen. I wanted to quickly show you my YouTube channel here. This is one of my recent YouTube Lives with the 360 Marketing Squad crew, Jen, Mike, Steph, Amanda. Amazing YouTube Live that I did there. I do a lot of YouTube Lives on a regular basis, weekly. And then here is the Facebook Live version of that same show. This is a different episode, but if you tune into the TubeBuddy Creators Corner show at any given time, any given week, you will see that I am multi-streaming to both Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and also actually Twitter/Periscope, and also my LinkedIn Live profile. But for this video tutorial, we're going to focus on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. All right, so now that you've seen the YouTube Live and the Facebook Live sort of happening really quickly at the same time, let's show you how to do that and how to set it up for yourself. The first thing is that you need to set up your StreamYard account. So go down into the description. You'll get a link that gives you a free month on StreamYard. And again, this is an affiliate link. So thank you so much for supporting this channel by using that link to get started with StreamYard. Once you've set up your StreamYard account and you're ready to rock, this is what you'll see. This is your
sinabi din po ng ating Pangulo Duterte sa kanyang SONA na we must patrol the country's cyberspace. We must run after online scammers and those undermining the people's trust in online transactions. Dumagsa nung kasagsagan, nung nag-umpisa po yung pandemic, dun din po dumagsa yung mga online scams na nare-receive po ng PUA, lalong-lalo na ang ating anti-illegal recruitment branch. Daming naloko dahil sa hirap ang sitwasyon ng ating bansa and I think all over the world. Maraming gustong mag-abroad na rin. Lalong maraming nabiktima. And we are overwhelmed with all the complaints ng ating mga kababayan. Umabot na sa mga remittance centers, nagbabayad sa remittance centers ng pera na hindi mo na binavalidate or bini-verify sa PUA kung legitimate ba ang itong entity na to, itong ahensya na ito, may mga tumatakbo sa travel and tours. So marami po talaga nakapagbigay na ng pera through remittance centers only to find out later that naloko na sila. They haven't heard from those people as to their status of their application. Okay. Bago tayo mag-proceed sa mga ano po ba yung mga modus ng mga illegal recruiters, I think kailangan muna nating i-discuss lang saglit lang yung definition ng illegal recruitment, no? So nakalagay sa slides please sa RA 8042 as amended by RA 10022 ang definition ng illegal recruitment. So please allow me to read for purposes of this act. Illegal recruitment shall mean any act of canvassing. Ito yung nanghihingi ng komisyon sa per pax, no, per head, enlisting, contracting, transporting, utilizing, hiring, procuring workers, and it includes referring. So mere referral constitutes illegal recruitment already. Referring, contract services, or mere promise or advertising for employment abroad, whether for profit or not. So whether it be for profit or per head, enlisting, contracting, transporting, utilizing, illegal recruitment undertaken by a non-licensed
Yeah, but everyone can see and hear you. Ano ba yan? Shh.
Ay, mutanaw din ko ana. Kadali.
I-send na ko sa imong link.
Oo, pasasek ko dyan.
They cannot even, alam niyo po yun, ng ating ibang mga kababayan dito lalo na sa Mindanao, hindi rin makasulat din, di ba? Merong ibang hindi. No read, no write. So yun yung mga kinakaharap natin na problema. Report po natin yun and in-address naman po nila, nagkaroon ng palitan ng staff, ni-recall yung mga empleyado doon. And I hope na sana okay na. Wala pa naman po ako naririnig pero ni-report po namin yon kasi minor de edad na. Pati yung mga lisensyadong recruitment agency na nag-deploy po ng mga minor de edad na yun. Kinasuhan po namin. Sabay-sabay po yun. In-re proceeding yun na hindi pwedeng i-dismiss. Basta in-re proceeding. Hindi pwedeng i-dismiss yun through settlement with family of minors. No? Madami po yun sila. I think they were 88 licenses na kinasuhan namin. So, pending po yun sa ating adjudication office sa PUA. Yun, isa yun sa mga pakikipaglaban natin para maproteksyonahan ang minors. And then, nakapunta din po ako sa Macau, sa Kuwait para mag-present or magbigay ng presentation. Ano po ba yung mga remedies na pwedeng ibigay sa mga ating kababayan. Nakita ko rin po yung mga shelters nila, lalo na yung mga kababaihan natin. Sad to say, napakarami pa rin, kahit na merong PUA, napakarami pa rin po ng mga undocumented workers. At andun na sila sa bansa na pinagtatrabahuhan nila. Ang lagi nilang tanong sa akin is, anong gagawin namin para mabigyan kami ng protection? Kasi huli na, yun po isa sa mga kaibahan. Pag halimbawa po, pumasok po ang kababayan natin bilang undocumented worker. Ibig sabihin po, hindi po yung dumaan sa proseso ng PUA. Hindi po siya dumaan sa License Recruitment Agency at ang kanyang mga documents hindi po pinoseso sa PUA. So, hindi ka entitled, wala kang protection for yung social security, wala ho kayong insurance, dahil yung agency, pinagbabayad po natin ang agency magbabayad ng PhilHealth ninyo. So wala silang ganun. So yung mga undocumented workers are very prone to abuse. No? Yun yung kaibahan. Bakit po lagi nating pinopromote saan man tayo mapunta? Dumaan kayo sa lehitimong recruitment agency at dapat magproseso po kayo. Unusual na concept, misunderstanding na direct hire. Ang karamihan po na iniisip ng iba, pag direct hire, it's a legitimate process na magtatanong sila na, ay, meron akong employer na contact na gusto akong i-hire. So, direct hire ako. At lahat po nag-iisip no na legal ito. No? Magsasubmit lang daw ng ganitong requirements. That's, ano na po siya, iniisip ng lahat na walang mali doon. No? Sa probinsya man, lalo sa mga taga-probinsya, naisip na, uy, may direct ni-refer ng kamag-anak na nasa abroad din, na may trabaho na, tapos may ni-refer na employer. So yung laging misconception doon is legal po iyon. Hindi po. you are prone to abuse kasi mapipilitan ka, hindi mo alam kung ang salary mo na matatanggap is na-meet ba ang minimum standard na salary, yung terms and conditions doon, meron ka bang ilang years ba ang kontrata mo, ano yung mga benefits na dapat matanggap mo under the standard employment contract. Yun. Akala nila legal yun at walang masama doon. So, nawala ako. Dapat naging may 10 minutes ako. Marami pa akong gustong sabihin. Sige lang po, bibilisan ko na lang. So, na-distract ako ng konti. Anyway, yun lagi ang problema. Pero mali po yun. Dapat po dumaan kayo sa isang licensed recruitment agency at dapat po maproseso kayo through PUA. Okay. So ano po ba yung mga modus? Bibilisan ko na lang kasi may 10 minutes na lang ako. Non-visa country. Marami pong mga kababayan natin na e-entice na magtrabaho sa bansa na hindi nagre-require ng visa, lalo sa mga ASEAN countries, no? So, may issuehan, ang ginagawa nila, although may working visa na i-issue, pagdating sa job site na lang, yung conditions na yung kagaya sinasabi ko, inferior na, hindi na nami-meet yung minimum requirements, substandard. Exploitative in the sense na kung magkano lang ang sweldo ibibigay sa iyo, yun lang. No? Hindi na-verify ng ating mga polo, nilalabad ang G. Next, tourist worker scheme. Alam niyo na po ito. Yung mga kababayan natin na entice para mabilis makahanap ng trabaho, lalabas sa bansa as tourist. No? Yung kanyang visa, ang hawak niya is tourist visa, and then pagdating sa bansa na pupuntahan niya, doon pa lang siya, maghahanap na siya ng trabaho doon. So yun yung mga laging modus, no, na ino-offer ng mga illegal recruiters. Repro, yung reprocessing. Lagi, even the licensed recruitment agencies commit this act, no, this prohibited act, na ito yung mga documents mo, nag-apply ka as nurse, tapos pagdating mo sa bansa na pagkatrabahuhan mo, yun pala, may ibang kontratang pa may pirmahan sa'yo, domestic helper ka pala, o kaya nursing assistant ka pala, binaba, no, ibang, and then since andun ka na, wala ka ng choice, kundi magtrabaho na lang, dahil hindi ka pa makareklamo, no, hindi ka makareklamo agad-agad. Next, ito yung student worker. Marami kaming problema din dito, itong mga student workers. And then, holiday tour visa. So, marami pong mga illegal recruiters, papadaan ang mga aplikante, tapos mag-aabil ng group holiday tours, no? So, walang ano yun, walang mga non-visa requiring countries, walang mga visa ng mga bansa. And pagdating doon na sila maghahanap ng employment, no? Wedding, grand occasion, invitation, for example, iimbitahan kayo na may kasal o mayroong grand occasion. And then pagdating doon sa ibang bansa, saka maghahanap ng trabaho. Of course, the Yaya method. Familiar na po kayo dyan. Skip ko na lang. And the fiancé visa scheme. No? And then the visa assistance or immigration consultancy scheme. Ito yung problema namin lagi. Pero marami po kaming napasara na immigration consultancy firm. Even the travel agencies, may mga pinasara na rin po kami kasi they're offering or promising employment din at nanghihingi sila ng bayad, no? So pag once namin yan sa surveillance po ng PUA yan at pinapasara. Okay. Next, make-believe documents. And yung isa, government direct hiring scam. Ito yung pinapalabas nila na through PUA, legitimate na PUA ito, government G2G, government-to-government hiring, pero yun pala, hindi po pala totoo at nakahingi ng pera. Internet scam. Okay, ito yung sinasabi ko po kanina na through remittance center. Detached, babitan ko po yun mamaya. Detached visa, ito yung laging namin nahuhuli sa airport kung saan visa, tourist visa nila naka-attach pagdating sa connecting country, i-detach nila yun, no, ang kanilang visa. No? May connecting flight sa isang Asian country. So, i-detach, and then pagdating ng transit, mag-board onward to Korea. So, naiiwasan nila yung PUA process. Na yung Terminal 3, open market. Okay. Ito yung mga recruiters sa NAIA Terminal 3, nakapaligid po yan sila. No? Bibiktima nila yung mga pasahero doon for immediate deployment. Binabrag nila na may mga connections sila sa immigration officers. At itong mga backdoor exit.
Wow.
Dahil since ang Pilipinas ay watak-watak yung kanyang mga isla, mayroon pong mga backdoor exit po na nakakapunta sila ng Malaysia. And then, itong sa online scam, ito po yung, if you're going to check, next slide please, ito-check nyo po yung Facebook account ng PUA at the illegal recruitment. Yung ginagawa namin dahil sa biglang spike ng mga online scams, may nakikita kami, tulungan po kami i-report to sa amin, may nakikita kami mga any Facebook posting at hindi po siya, suspicious po siya, hindi po siya pinost ng isang licensed recruitment agency. Pinopost po namin, kinukuha po namin yung kanilang post at tinatataka namin ng scam. Bine-verify po namin yun kung lisensyado ang nag-post na to at kung merong existing na job order. Pag wala, tinatatakan po namin ng scam. No? So please follow us sa PUA Anti-Illegal Recruitment. Itong mga post na to, ito po pinapakita ko, may nakalagay, Pinoy hiring abroad today. Marami na kaming advisories na pinangalanan itong mga ganitong FB page. No? Urgent agency work abroad. Tinatatakan po namin yan ng scam. Unang-una, asan yung legitimate license recruitment agency? Wala po. Tapos itong tandaan nyo po, lagi yung may clickbait na apply here, tapos meron pong link, no? Tapos i-direct po kayo sa ibang link niyan. Tandaan niyo po lagi na mahihingin nyo na pera. Hingin yung details nyo, manghihingi na sa inyo ng pera. Unang-una, meron pong regulation sa PUA at kung mag-post po kayo ng vacancy, job vacancy for employment abroad, dapat po may nakalagay na pangalan ng agency. Bakit kayo magtatago, no, ng inyong pangalan? Yun nga yung privilege na binigay sa inyo. Binigyan kayo ng lisensya para ipakita sa buong mundo, legitimate kami na ahensya. No? So, hindi po dapat ganito yung mga posting sa Facebook na hindi nagpapakilala. At ito yung mga pang-iengganyo na no placement fee. So, bakit po siya peke? Walang agency na nakalagay, walang job order, magpo-post ng mga peking hiring. And then, sa next slide, meron din po kaming pinakita sa inyo, trabaho para sa Pinoy. Legit agencies to work abroad for Filipinos. Mga nagpo-post again, ang sinasabi po na itong mga FB page, dapat, kung hayaan nila mag-post kung sino man, no, sa mga grupo nila sa FB page, dapat po i-verify din po nila kung legitimate to na licensed agencies. So bakit peke po ito na ng agency? Nasaan ang job order? Pag bine-verify sa PUA, wala po. So mag-ingat po kayo sa mga ganitong online posting, no, ng job vacancy. And then next slide. Yung mga peking trabaho sa Poland, okay? Pero kung titingnan nyo din minsan, peking trabaho sa Poland, pero may nakalagay din na Qatar pala siya. Parang copy-paste na lang ang ginagawa ng iba. And then, dito sa slide naman na to, Casabel, Tagumata, may nag-post. No? Illegal para sa mga
sa travel agency, dapat nagpo-post ng job vacancy or nag-o-offer ng employment.
Na hindi po dapat nagpo-post ng job vacancy or nag-o-offer ng employment. Okay. So, ito, kinapture ko po yung isa sa mga pinopost ng PUA Anti-Illegal Recruitment. Makipag-usap lang sa mga authorized na representative ng Licensed Recruitment Agency. Kunin niyo po ang pangalan at i-check yung ID nila. Meron pong, itong pinapakita ko po ngayon, sa Koreanong nakuli, no? Nangako ng trabaho bilang factory worker sa Korea. So direct hire daw sila. So ayan, natimbog, nahuli, at kulong sa kasong illegal recruitment. No, nangako din ito ng extra na sweldo para sa mga nagsa-sideline na sex worker. Okay. Ang ginagawa po ng PUA, dahil wala pong law enforcement power ang PUA, nag-endorse po kami ng mga ganitong kaso for possible entrapment and for possible case building dito sa PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group. No? Also a member of the IACAT, PNP, PUA, DOJ, ni Fiscal May, member po kami ng IACAT. So dito namin dinudulog lahat sa PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group pagdating sa mga online scam. Ito yung sabi ko po kanina, nag-post ng, next slide please, job vacancy for Canada, pero sa kanilang picture naman may nakalagay na Doha, Qatar. So nalito na yung nag-post niyan. Yet marami pa rin kumakagat po, no? Sa hirap ng buhay, I guess. Hindi natin mag-blame yung ating mga kababayan. And another posting, tinatakan po namin ng scam. Bakit peke? Walang agency, walang job order na nakalagay kasi dapat ilagay niyo po kanong job order. Yung agency dapat.
Ano na nito, Mac? Sabaw mo?
Facebook group na Agency Work Abroad by PUA. So, Agency Work Abroad by PUA nakalagay. So, wala pong ganun. And then, itong isang paalala, bawal mag-recruit ang mga consultancy firm, training center, travel agency at iba pa. Wag po kayong maniniwala sa mga offer ng employment ng mga consultancy firm. Training center, naglipanan na rin po ang training centers dito sa Pilipinas. May mga napasara na po kami, mga Japanese, Korean language training centers and travel agencies. Ito. So, kinuha po namin to from the Philippine Embassy ng New Zealand. Kung nagpaloko ka na sa ex mo, huwag ka rin magpaloko sa mga labor, immigration, education agents at advertisers na nag-aalok ng magandang buhay sa New Zealand. Kasi nauso po nung nakaraan yung mga apple pickers na sa New Zealand, naghahanap daw ang New Zealand ng mga apple pickers, fruit pickers, mga ganon. At dinadala pa sa Cavite para di umano magti-training. Yun pala hindi po totoo. Pero nagbayad na sila ng mga 100 to 250,000, no? At uli na namin malalaman kasi wala nang nangyari sa kanilang application pagkatapos silang i-training. Yun po ang laging challenge namin kasi nagreklamo na lang po ang ating mga kababayan pag nakapagbigay sila ng pera and after a period of time, wala na silang maririnig po sa kanilang application. Kasi unang-una po dapat sana i-verify po natin sa PUA kung legitimate po yun na ahensya yung ina-applyan natin. Okay, ito po yung sa next slide, ito po yung sinabi kong nagbabayad ng ating mga kababayan sa remittance centers sa mga amount na 3,000, 3,500, 3,800 pagkatapos silang makareceive ng email, text, or DM, or PM. No? Anong mga remittance centers to? Kasi mabilis lang to eh. Maghuhulog lang ang mga kababayan natin lalo sa mga probinsya na sa Palawan Express, sa M. Luwilier, Cebuana, Western Union, LBC, o kaya GCash. Kinuusap namin ng dito, asa na po yung mga nanghihingi kami ng identity ng pinagpadalhan, ng recipient ng pera, no? As part of our case building para makasuhan. And it's so sad lang na, I don't know, na hindi po namin makuha yung kanilang response dito. Sabi nila, the process will take longer. So yun, napakahirap po. Pag after the fact na, or tapos na po yung act, no, nakuha na yung pera, napakahirap po maghabol, no, sa illegal recruiter. And another reminder, makipagtransaksyon at magbayad lang sa loob ng opisina ng Licensed Recruitment Agency at humingi ng resibo po. Official receipt, maghingi po kayo lagi. No? Pag sinabi ng Licensed Recruitment Agency na walang resibo, wag po kayong papayag. Humingi po kayo ng resibo. Kasi marami po kaming kaso na nahahawakan na walang resibong ini-issue ang Licensed Recruitment Agency. Okay. So ano ang gagawin? Sa Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch po, meron po kaming Legal Assistance Division. Meron 3 abogado sa Legal Assistance. 5 abogado sa Prosecution Division. Sila po yung nag-hearing, no, sa ating mga criminal courts. At 2 lawyer sa Operations and Surveillance Division. So napaka-konti lang po namin. But we try our best. No? Pag halimbawa hindi makapagtrabaho yung 2 lang yung sa Legal Assistance Division na nag-a-assist. So pinapa-rescue ko sa ibang lawyers, no, sa Legal Assistance Division. Dahil every day, minimum of 100 na mga workers na OFW ang kailangan nating i-assist na pumunta ng opisina, not to mention pa yung mga online na nanghihingi ng ating tulong. Okay. Ano po ang complaints mechanism? Pwede po, kung sino man po ang nabiktima ng illegal recruitment, o kaya even sa licensed recruitment agencies, may reklamo po kayo sa kanila, pwede ho kayong mag-walk-in sa POEA. No? Kung nasa ibang bansa naman po kayo, pwede po kayong pumunta sa Polo or sa embassy ninyo at doon po kayo magreklamo. Ang usually ginagawa po ng Polo, endorse po yun, kukunin po ang state
understand what trafficking in persons by analyzing the elements. Next slide, please. So, tanong natin, ano ba yung sinasabing elements, no? Let's compare that to a parang recipe, di ba? For example, sa adobo, the main ingredients of adobo is suka, toyo, and the meat. Siyempre, di ba? Kung kulang ng isa dyan, hindi na siya magiging adobo. So, for example, if wala siyang meat, toyo lang tsaka suka, that's not adobo, that's already parang sausawan na lang. Diba? Or if wala namang toyo, pwedeng makapaksiw na lang siya. No? So, let's try to imagine the elements of a crime na para siyang ingredients ng isang recipe. So, sa crimes po kasi may tinatawag kaming elements. No? Ibig sabihin yan, kailangan yung ingredients na to present para makatawag mo siyang crime. So, bawat crime po, meron po yan siyang ingredients or elements na. So, sa trafficking in persons po, we have 3 elements or sabihin natin ingredients. So, these 3 elements are acts, means, and exploitative cause. Next. Yan po yung 3 elemento. Next slide, please. Now, alamin natin, what constitute acts? So, ito yung mga acts. No? There is recruitment, there is transportation, there is transfer. May nagtatanong, bakit, anong kinaibahan ng transportation and transfer? No? Posible kasing na-transfer ka from one place to another without necessarily riding a transportation. No? Meron kaming mga kaso na naglakad lang. Because trafficking can be committed naman even if hindi ka ng ibang bansa. It can be committed even within a barangay. No? Harboring. Ano ba yung harboring? No? You're provided with board and lodging. No? O itinago ka. Receipt. So, tinanggap ka. Ito, no? Yung trafficker, siya yung tumanggap sa'yo. Obtaining, kinuha ka from, for example, kinuha ka sa probinsya, no? You're obtained from there. Hiring, providing, so meaning pinrovide ka ng trafficker sa customer. Or inoffer ka ng trafficker sa customer. Or maintaining, no? Parang harboring nito, na siya yung nag-maintain sa'yo. So those are the acts that constitute the element of acts naman. Pero hindi kailangan na lahat yan present. So pwede any one or more of those acts lang. The next element is means, no? So ano ito means? Means is ano ba yung what are the means employed para ma-recruit ka, para ma-transport ka, no? Or ma-transfer, etc. Ano yung ginamit ng trafficker? So meron kaming ano nito, no, ginagawang we actually divided this into like 2 categories, no? Yung violent means and non-violent means. So yung sa violent means, dito naman nakalagay na either you were threatened, you were forced, coerced, or abducted, no? Kinidnap, ganyan, pinilit. Meron din naman tayong tinatawag na non-violent means. So non-violent means, dito pasok yung fraud or deception, no? Abuse of power, abuse of possession. So meaning, nag-take advantage sila ng kanilang possession. Then meron dyan nakalagay, taking advantage of the vulnerability of the person. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Ibig sabihin nito, yung trafficker, pinagsamantalahan niya yung pagiging vulnerable mo. So what are the examples of vulnerability ba? Tanong natin, no? Ano yung sinasabi mong vulnerability, no? You can be a vulnerable person if, for example, you are poor, no? Poverty is a vulnerability. Or lack of education is a vulnerability. Or if you're a victim of calamity, that's a vulnerability also, no? Kasi grabe yung need mo. Or ngayon, nasa pandemic tayo, no? So nawala ng trabaho, or nawala ng business, that is also a vulnerability. Now, ano tong giving or receiving of payment? Sometimes kasi, no, especially in our culture, to get a particular person, especially if bata pa, kahit hindi naman minor, no, we give payments to the parents, no, or kung sino man yung nag-aalaga sa victim. Now, that's the second element. Now, the third element is exploitative purpose. So ano ibig sabihin nito? Purpose meaning, ano yung reason bakit mo siya ni-recruit? What was the reason bakit siya tinransport ng trafficker? So these are the exploitative purposes. No? So what I did is I also categorized it into 4 types of purposes. No? So we have sex trafficking. No? Kaya ka pala ni-recruit, tinransport is for prostitution, sex tourism, sexual exploitation, or pornography. Meron ding labor trafficking. No? Dito yung sa pilitang pagtatrabaho, forced labor, slavery, gagawin kang slave. Debt bondage. No? You will be forever indebted pala. No? Yung trabaho mo, wala nang katapusan dahil you are forever paying a debt, no, ang utang. Then involuntary servitude. No? This is also similar to forced labor. Sa child trafficking naman, pwede rin siyang magiging trafficking if you were recruited, yung bata ni-recruit para maging child soldier, or to perform illegal activities or work. For example, ni-recruit yung bata or hinarbor yung bata para gawing magnanakaw or magbenta ng drugs, that is also trafficking. Or work that is harmful to their health, safety, or morals. So kung nag-recruit ka ng bata para ginawa mong pinatrabaho mo, for example, to a work that is harmful to their health, no? That could also be trafficking in persons. No? And other forms of TIP, ito yung removal or sale of organs naman. Now, to better understand the means, pakibalik lang sa previous slide. Let's provide an example. So for example, sabihin natin si Maria. Si Maria was recruited by Juan. Sabi ni Juan, dito ka magtrabaho sabihin natin para mas relevant yung lugar. Sabi mo, dito ka magtrabaho sa Florida, sabi niya. Mag-tourist ka lang, then pagdating mo dito, meron na akong employer for you. Let's say, sabi niya, you could work as a domestic helper for this particular employer. Pero siningil ka ng 50,000, sabihin natin, 50,000 na parang recruitment fee. No? So, nagkaroon ka ng, let's say, tourist visa to go to the US, thinking that you will have a work in the US. Pagdating niya ng US, wala pala siyang trabaho. Niloko lang pala siya ni Juan, na sinabing may trabaho na siya or may employer na siya, pero pagdating wala pala. So tanong, i-analyze natin, meron ba siyang trafficking in persons? No? Is it trafficking in persons? So, i-analyze natin yung mga elements. May act ba? Meron, di ba? Ni-recruit siya. Was there any means employed? So, meron din kasi there was fraud. Deception. Sabi, may trabaho, pero pagdating doon, wala pala. Was there an exploitative purpose? Meron bang exploitative purpose? Kasi pagdating niya ng US, wala palang trabaho. So, mapasok ba siya sa trafficking in persons? If you try to analyze that situation, hindi siya trafficking in persons because there was no exploitative purpose. Naloko lang siya, wala palang trabaho. So, what could the crime be? So, posible pwedeng illegal recruitment, or pwede din sa estafa, diba? Kasi naloko ko siya. Now, paano siya magiging trafficking in person? So, medyo ibahin natin yung scenario. So, sabi nga, di ba, kunwari, ang promise sa kanya, domestic helper. Pero pagdating pala niya sa, let's say, sa Florida, she was made to work in a bar pala. And to work, for example, as an entertainer or a prostituted woman. So in that case, meron na ba tayong trafficking in persons in that scenario? So in that scenario, masasabi natin na meron na. Because there was the act of recruitment, there was the fraud or deception because the job is different from what was promised. And there is exploitative purpose, which is prostitution or sexual exploitation. So that's how we analyze the elements of trafficking in persons and how to identify if your situation can be classified as trafficking in persons or baka naman illegal recruitment na siya or staff. Next slide, please. But the law also says if the victim is a child, wala na daw means, no? Mababawasan yung element pag ang biktima is bata. But what is a child? Next slide, please. A child under the law is somebody who is below 18 or 18 and above, pero meron siyang physical or mental defect na he or she won't be able to protect herself. So pag ganoon, we only have two elements na lang, the acts and the exploitative purpose. So meaning, kahit voluntary on the part pa yung bata na nag-apply siya for na maging GRO, no? If that child was hired, since hindi naman kailangan mag-prove ng means, that could constitute trafficking in persons na. So yun lang po yung kaibahan pag ang biktima is bata. Next slide, please. Next slide. So penalties, we have 20 years to life imprisonment and fine of 1 million to 5 million. Next slide, please. So what are some of the MOs or modus operandi or warning signs? No? Next slide, please. So some of those that we encountered yung drug mules, no? They recruit people to work abroad, pero while in transit or during stopovers in another country, may bibigay sa kanila na sealed package or additional bag. Sasabihin, eto, dadalhin mo ito para sa employer mo, huwag mong bubuksan kasi confidential yung whatever is inside. No? So, syempre, ikaw, ayaw mo rin buksan, di ba? You don't want to betray their trust. And then, it turns out pala na prohibited drugs were placed in the said bag or in the said sealed package. So we received reports of this kind. No? Some were incarcerated in Singapore, in Brazil, no, in Africa. Next slide, please. Another MO is yung false promises regarding destination. Diba? Iba pala yung destination of employment than what is promised. Now, bakit siya magiging trafficking? Because sometimes, yung destination kasi is a major factor in our decision to accept the offer, diba? For example, let's say kunwari sa Middle East, like you were promised that your destination is in Dubai, no? So since it's an open city, you're open to work there, so you accepted the recruitment, no? You accepted the invite, but later on, nandun ka na, you realize na hindi pala yung final destination of employment mo. It's in another city pala or in another country. So that could be trafficking in persons because ang mangyayari niyan, hindi na voluntary in your part yung pagtatrabaho mo. You are forced, no? To work na lang because you're there na eh. But have you known that ito pala yung final destination mo? Hindi ka sana papayag na magtrabaho doon. So that could be trafficking in persons. Another MO is, next slide please, is false promises naman regarding work and salary. No? So we have cases na ang promise is artist daw, pagdating doon yung pala magiging laborer, factory worker. So that could also be trafficking in persons because there was deceit employed and you would not have accepted the job offer had you known na iba pala yung trabaho mo na. Nurse daw, pero pagdating doon, hindi pala nurse, no? Nursing assistant lang pala. O yung iba naman, ginawang, kunwari, yaya ka ng companion ka ng isang elderly, no? So, pupunta ka kunwari ng US as a companion of an elderly. Pero pagdating mo pala doon, gagawin ka palang katulong, kunwari, nung relative pala nung supposedly companion nung elderly na sasamahan mo, no? So, that could also be a form of trafficking in persons, no? Next slide, please. So what to watch out for? Next slide. So ito, pag nangyari ito sa inyo, you know na medyo magtanong na kayo or medyo magduda na. Now, recruits are pressured to decide immediately. So yung parang mabilisan. This is very rampant, especially if pag mga Middle East na mga job offers. No? They're pressured to really decide immediately, sign contracts. In fact, pati mga plane tickets, domestic plane tickets are being falsified. No? So, kaya if you are pressured to falsify documents, itatanong ka na rin because if it's a legit organization or a legit company, you will not be asked to falsify the documents. So we have seen victims who were asked to falsify their passports. Like for example, to make it appear that they're 23 years old, they will use the birth certificates of their sisters or neighbors. Yung iba naman, magpa-falsify talaga ng birth certificate to make it appear that they are older than their exact or the real age. Or recruits are made to sign blank or incomplete contracts. And then, that is also something to watch out for. Or you are prohibited to make friends or interact with neighbors or are placed in a situation which make it difficult for you to interact with other people. So yung parang nililimit yung movements mo. So that is also something to watch out for. So ibig sabihin, may tinatago, di ba? Ayaw nila na may malaman mo na yung situation mo pala ngayon is illegal pala, no? Or is prohibited. Next slide, please. Sorry, I only have a few minutes na lang. Medyo overtime na daw, kaya I need to go faster. You work for longer hours than promised. That is also something to watch out for. You are experiencing physical or verbal abuse. You are being threatened with deportation if you will not agree to unreasonable demands. And then travel documents are being withheld. So, yan yung mga situations na dapat you need to watch out kasi ibig sabihin there is something wrong with your current situation. No? And maganda rin, alam mo kung you can identify, am I in a trafficking situation or not? So, these are just some of the situations or circumstances that you could use to identify whether or not you are currently experiencing trafficking in persons. Next slide, please. So, what support is out there for me? No? Hindi naman ibig sabihin na kahit nasa ibang bansa ka na, wala kang support. So, what did the law say? Next slide, please. So, under the law, you have the following support na services na dapat mabigay sa iyo. If you are a victim of trafficking in persons, should have legal, medical, and psychological services available to you, emergency shelter, no? Kung kailangan mong tumakas sa employer mo, at least mabigyan ka ng gobyerno ng emergency shelter. Kung ano rin yung services na available to mga na-recruit illegally under RA 8042 as amended, regardless of your immigration status, documented ka ba or undocumented, that should also be given to you. Then repatriation, no? The DFA, they should assist you for the repatriation. Or kung mas harmful naman yung repatriation, at least for the DFA to make representation if the country where you are can ask for your extended stay. So next slide, please. So that actually ends my presentation. No? So I encourage yung mga kababayan natin abroad na you should be aware, be a voice, and take action. Even if we are not in a trafficking in person situation, if you know somebody na sa tingin mo, parang ganun yung situation yan. Parang nata-traffic na itong kababayan ko. Then you should take action. Then you should also be a voice. And I will leave you with this quote. No? Next slide, please. Na if we help each other, individually we are one drop, but together we are an ocean. So, magandang gabi ulit sa lahat.
Thank you, Attorney May, and again, thank you, Attorney Lialanom. Two young but very brave and strong advocates against trafficking and illegal recruitment. Two lady lawyers from the Philippines. Thank you again. And I see now a lot of questions being raised in our chat room, and let me immediately proceed to the questions. For purposes of this webinar, we have asked our Boss Mark de la Vega to allow us an extension of at least at the most 15 minutes to accommodate all the questions that we have here at the chat room. So we have one. Would you consider FB pages who are encouraging Filipino teachers to apply for J1 visas to come here in the US? They ask for fees just for credentialing. So I think the question is, would you consider this as illegal recruitment? If or how would you size up FB pages with this kinds of advertisements? So Attorney Lialano, I think this is for POEA. This is from Unified, Sir Edgardo Dakpano.
Yes, Labat, I don't know if you agree with me, but may mga complaints po kami na-receive in the past po na ganyan, no? And when we check po yung concept ng J1 visa, ito yung visa na ino-offer sa mga foreign citizens, parang to promote some sort of a cultural exchange po ba? Parang gano'n. Nung inaral namin at first, we parang baka pwedeng gawin siyang, depende po, no, kung baka ginagamit lang siya as a means to circumvent. Pero kung titingnan natin sa website po, ang J1 visa, it's legitimate, no? It's another scheme paano makapasok po sa US, no? Basta ang tinitingnan namin, kung limited period lang naman yung program na yon, I think that's okay. So hindi po hinahayaan na lang po namin yon unless gagamitin siya or abuse ang J1 visa ng ultimate yung visa, pwede pong it's okay na babayaran, no? But kung meron pang sisingilin outside of the visa fee, I think that's another matter. So, ipaalam niyo po yun sa amin. Kasi kung talagang visa fee lang ang sinisingil, and kung upon confirmation with the Polo, kung tama po ba yung range ng amount of the visa fee, I guess that's okay. Kasi meron kaming instance na pipigilan ba namin tong aplikanteng to na nag-apply for J1 sa airport na yung real time na pipigilan namin or hindi. And nung na-verify namin sa legitimate naman, unless po may sisingilin na iba outside of the visa fee na in-applyan ninyo. So yun, medyo may gray area, medyo we're studying how to attack it. Pero J1 is okay. Basta po, may nakalagay naman po dun sa, kailangan pong i-check yung consistency ng documents ng kontrata. Kung specific period lang po ba yun, kung talagang cultural exchange lang po ba. But kung i-abuse yun, that's another matter po.
Thank you, Attorney Dia. I think yung question ng Unified is when FB pages by other non-government or non-entities will advertise. The advice of POEA, Sir Dakpano, is to provide the details to Paul and to POEA so that we could immediately check whether these advertisements are legitimate and whether these are coming from legitimate sources. So thank you for that, sir. Another question is, how does two of the participants actually asked this, how does an applicant know that the recruitment agency is legitimate, and where can you find all the sources or the names of all these legitimate recruitment agencies?
Sa PUA website po, makikita niyo po doon kung license po yung recruitment agency. Makikita niyo po doon yung kanilang license number. Mati-check niyo rin po sa PUA kung meron silang existing na job order. Pag wala po doon silang existing job order, usually itatype niyo doon yung country, kung saan yung vacancy, or pwede nyo i-type yung pangalan ng agency at makikita nyo yung kanyang mga job orders. But kung nahihirapan po kayo, please message our FB page, yung PUA Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch. I-message nyo po. Pag hindi po sumagot, sabihin nyo lang po sa akin. Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch. Pwede po kayo din magtanong, legitimate po ba yung agency na to? At existing po ba yung approved job order? So please follow our FB account, Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch po. No?
Thank you, Attorney Ria. Another, this is a comment from one of the teachers too. Marami po kasi hindi sa salary ang problem but in the whole recruitment process. So may comment siya on the recruitment process. So there's a question raised by another Philcom leader. What is the process if the illegal recruiter is in the host country? What is the protection that the complaint can seek based in the host country as illegal recruiters are well connected and victims are powerless usually?
Opo. Yung unang sagot ko po kanina, pag yung elements of the crime of illegal recruitment were committed outside of the Philippines or sa ibang bansa, hindi po natin sila mapoprosecute, makakasuhan dito. Pag ang elements is doon siya nag-recruit, doon siya nag-offer ng payment sa abroad, mahirapan po tayo dito kasi wala po tayong jurisdiction of this person. Tsaka yung mga crimes, yung acts na committed is outside. But unless po, yung bansa na pinagtatrabuhan ninyo, meron po prevailing law on illegal recruitment or trafficking. At doon committed yung acts, pwede po siyang ma-prosecute din doon. Pero dito sa Pilipinas, hindi. Pero pwede po nating mapa-blacklist dito sa PUA by filing a case against that person na kinumit niya yung, kahit kinumit niya yung crimes outside of the Philippines, ipapa-blacklist natin sila dito sa PUA. Anong effect po niyan? Subukan nilang bumalik dito sa Pilipinas. Pag bumalik sila dito sa Pilipinas at lalabas ulit, mahaharang po sila sa immigration. No? Kasi nakakonect yung link ng PUA sa immigration. So makikita po kung blacklisted itong taong to, hindi na rin siya makaka-process ng kanyang documents, no? Pabalik. So definitely makaka-curtail yung kanyang movement palabas, hindi po talaga siya makakabalik. So yun yung remedy nakikita ko pag doon siya nag-recruit outside. Pero dito na sila sa PUA kakasuhan. Pag dito naman kinumit, syempre, understandably po, pwede natin kasuhan po dito. Yeah.
Thank you, Attorney Ria. Another question, is it possible for a fiancé visa holder na niloko ng principal sponsor na ma-consider as traffic victim? Ang narinig kasi daw niya is yung trafficking is more on workers, but does this apply also to holders of fiancé visas, Attorney May?
Depende sa facts ng circumstances niya. Like, she's a holder of a fiancé visa, pero ano yung nangyari sa kanya or ano exactly yung nangyari sa kanya in the host country. So, we cannot say for sure. Posible pa rin, no? In fact, we have cases na fiancé visa, pero pagdating pala doon, no, ginawa lang yung hindi pala talaga siya pakasalan, no? But she will be used for forced labor or sexual exploitation or prostitution, then that can be trafficking in persons. So, depende sa situation. And idagdag ko lang din, no, yung pwede bang ma-file ng cases even if sa abroad nangyari yung trafficking. No? Under the trafficking in persons law, sa IR kasi medyo, sa illegal recruitment, medyo mahirap yun. But in trafficking in persons, we have a provision kasi sa law na even if the exploitation or some of the elements happened in a foreign country, pwede pa rin siyang makasuhan, no, sa Pilipinas, especially if the accused or the recruiter is a Filipino citizen or kahit hindi siya Filipino citizen but is a permanent resident of the Philippines. You can still file cases in the Philippines.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Attorney May. Mukhang maraming makukuhang information ng ating mga US at Philcom leaders sa Caribbean Islands. Now, another question, ano po ang from PIA, no? Ano po ang mga kaukulang dokumento na hihingin at susurin ng mga barangay governments upang masiguro na legal ang recruitment lalo na sa mga kanayunan? Ang lalim naman ng Tagalog doon. Attorney Ria or Attorney May can address these questions. What are the documents needed? Attorney Ria?
Siguro po unang-una, yung license ng recruitment agency. Meron po yan silang certificate of license na hinahawakan, no, na inisyu ng PWA. At pangalawa, yung authorized representative ng licensed recruitment agency, dapat po meron siyang certificate of employment, valid ID. Pangatlo, kung duda pa rin po yung ating mga barangay officials, pwede po silang magtanong sa PWA. At since digital na po ngayon, doon na lang po sa mga FB accounts ng PWA, lalong-lalo na po sa PWA Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch po.
Okay, thank you. May dagdag ka, Attorney May?
As I understand the law on illegal recruitment, I think hindi din pwede, they're not actually allowed to go in the barangays, magbahay-bahay, mag-recruit. That is actually not allowed. Because yung authority mo to recruit, you must specify as particular place. Like, for example, sa opisina talaga pupunta. Hindi sila yung bubisita ng mga bahay-bahay para mag-recruit. That is not an allowed activity. Also, kahit pa, kunwari, kaya nga even those na nagkakandak ng recruitment activity sa mga malls, no, they need to still get a special recruitment authority for that. No? Kasi dapat talaga sa opisina lang.
Thank you, Attorney May. There's another question, but I think this was already addressed. No? If the recruiter is a Filipino citizen but acts were committed outside of the Philippines, di pwedeng ireklamo in the Philippines. And then, I think that there was already an answer to that kung ang recruiter ay Filipino at baka it could be also an act of trafficking. Then, a Filipino citizen who is outside of the country or in any host country who commits any of the acts of trafficking in persons could be prosecuted in the Philippines as long as it satisfies all the three elements as mentioned by Attorney May. Merong request dito, si Sir Ray, can we request our two panelists to share their presentations to us via email, including the speech and the transcript of the speech of DCM Renato Villa. May request po dito, sir. So, ang next question, may mga nag-prosecute na ba ng mga illegal recruiters or traffickers ng mga J1s? Attorney Ria or Attorney May?
In our jurisdiction, I have not come across any prosecution of J1 trafficking na involves sa J1 visas, no. I know in the US ata meron na, no, but I'm not really sure if there are cases filed in the US, no. Pero dito, personally, I haven't come across any trafficking persons cases involving J1 visas. Pero posible siya.
So, Attorney Ria?
Yes, ako din po, I haven't heard any conviction po, no? At basta tandaan nyo lang po, kahit na po J1 visa, legitimate po siya. But if ultimately yung pagdating nyo doon, hindi po siya cultural exchange program, pinagtrabaho kayo as a household service worker, di po ba? Iba na po yun, no? Doon po, gagalaw na po kami doon. Kasi na-abuse na po yung program na po yun eh. It's no longer an cultural exchange program. That's why we always approach each case, no? Depende sa facts, sa scenarios, sa mga attendance circumstances po.
Sige, aside from the questions ng mga ating participants dito, may mga questions din dun sa ating FB Live. At isang question is, merong trafficker na nasa isang island, pero may standing warrant sa Pilipinas, paano raw ito i-enforce at anong gagawin sa kanya?
I think it depends also no kung ano yung outstanding warrant niya. I'm not very well versed sa mga tinatawag natin. Like for example, baka pwede niyang ipa-extradite kung nasa ibang bansa. Depende kasi kung anong klaseng crime was committed in the Philippines. Kung extraditable ba siya na crime. No? So, extradition is one option. Pero kasi kung Kung hindi, that's really hard, paano mo ma-enforce outside the country yung warrant. No?
Yung kaso niya,
If there's parang
ang kaso niya is trafficking yata sa Pilipinas, and then a warrant was issued against this trafficker, but then this trafficker is still at large and in the islands. So I think the PhilCom leader is asking how does the YACAT
what's the process?
figure in this process?
I would suggest para we could study talaga yung kaso niya is to if he or she na ba approach IACAT para mapag-aralan if pwede ba siyang ma-extradite. There are some instances naman na we requested for extradition. Medyo long process kasi siya, but this involves kasi usually foreigners naman in other countries. So we haven't come across a situation where Filipino din yung i-extradite natin. But I would suggest for the person asking the question to pwede naman din niya kaming ma-approach, for example, through email or sa FB page and ask and inform us about that case and the details of that case para we could check kung ano yung mga options available.
Thank you. From another question from Jonathan Roque. If there is no recruiter involved pero nagpunta sa US ng tourist visa, then decides to work and apply for a working visa, is there a violation? No recruiter, he goes on his own by himself and then he works here. Is there a violation? Attorney Ria.
Usually, yung the reality is yung ating mga kababayan na lumalabas sa ibang bansa hindi dumadaan sa tamang proseso. Siyempre, undocumented workers po sila, but that doesn't mean na ipo-prosecute natin sila kahit na yes, may violation, pero we do not prosecute them kasi naiintindihan natin yung circumstances nila na naghahanap. However, we in-encourage po natin yung ating mga kababayan na undocumented. Ibig sabihin, hindi kayo dumaan sa proseso sa PUA or dumaan sa License Recruitment Agency na pinroseso yung document nyo sa PUA, magparehistro po sa inyong mga polo or sa embassy ninyo. May nilabas po kaming MC2 last 2018 po ata or 2019 kung saan ina-akay po kayo na to have yourself registered po para malaman po ng inyong mga polo, nilalabat angging, na andyan kayo sa ibang bansa, ma-register kayo, makuha po yung information ninyo at para maprotektahan kayo nilalabat angging at ng ibang mga polo labor attaches natin. As to the terms and conditions, is to give you protection. Kaya please, nananawagan po kami, have yourself registered po sa inyong respective polos po. Magpa-document po tayo. Kahit nandiyan na po kayo sa ibang bansa at undocumented po tayo, pwede po tayo magpa-document na, pa-register po tayo.
Thank you, Attorney Ria. Merong pahabol na question dito, tatlong questions from the panelists. The first one is, what are the steps that the POEA are doing to curb and minimize illegal recruitment in the time of COVID, yung pandemic natin ngayon? So if there are other special measures aside from the protective mechanisms that we've already have provided and have implemented over the years, baka meron pa, can we give the updates right now, Attorney Ria?
Before pandemic po, meron po kaming, nagkakandak po kami ng massive campaign, yung AirTip, Anti-Illegal Recruitment Trafficking in Person campaign. Ito po yung sumasama po yung ibang mga government agencies, pupunta po kami sa mga barangay-barangay. At sinasabi po namin, ito po, kailangan dumaan po kayo sa proseso ng PUA, sa mga lisensyado lamang na recruitment agencies dapat kumapit. At mag-ingat sa mga ahente dahil kadalasan, maraming mga unregistered agents, no? So, gusto lang mangumisyon ng ahente pero hindi sila authorized, no, ng Licensed Recruitment Agency. Maliban po doon,
lahat po kami we went digital po, no? Although wala kaming talagang nasa system pa na automated system, pero lahat po through emails, ang aming legal assistance through email na po at sa Facebook. Ano pa po ba mga measures? May mga LSIs, yung mga locally stranded individuals, pinapupuntahan namin sa mga accommodations nila dahil nagrereklamo nga na napapabayaan. Usually po, pag ganyan, lagi kami in coordination with the law enforcement agencies sa PNP at NBI, no, para mag-rescue. Magre-rescue kami ng mga household service workers, minors, sa mga accommodation houses. Once malaman po namin na may mga minor de edad. Maliban po dito, ang problema po talaga namin, ang continuous challenge namin is yung online scams. Kasi nagkalat po silang lahat. Nakipag-usap na kami sa Facebook management. And dinulog po namin yung problema. Nagbibigay kami lagi ng report sa kanila na please take this down, these pages down, FB page down. Although it's taking them long kasi sabi nila mahaba yung proseso. Although nag-report sila sa amin na yung na-report namin mga FB pages, tinake down nila last year. So ganun lang. Pero after the fact na, marami na pong naloko. And we are asking their help po sa na kung pwede yung preventive approach po na pwedeng maitulong sa atin ng FB, ng Facebook. However, they told us na they will take it into consideration and they will study the matter kasi nagkakandak pa sila ng case study. So yun. So ngayon, ang nagagawa lang po talaga ng Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch is to report. At umabot na po kami doon sa point na nakikipag-away na kami doon sa mga illegal recruiters. Ang ginagawa naman ng mga illegal recruiters na yon online, na massive reporting yung FB namin, yung Facebook page. So kami na ngayon ang nati-take down yung Facebook Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch. So yun yung masakla. So please, tulungan na po kami na i-report po yung mga FB pages sa Facebook. And also, i-report nyo rin po sa Facebook Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch para marami pong mag-follow. Matatakan po namin ng scam yon para lahat ma-alert. No? Ang problem namin is how to reach our kababayans globally. So tulungan niyo po sana kami na i-endorse yung Facebook Anti-Illegal Recruitment Branch. I-follow niyo po. Magtanong po kayo doon kung lisensyado yung agency or yung ahente, yun. So, please tulungan niyo po kami kasi kukunti lang kami and we all need your help. Magtulungan po tayo.
Thank you, Attorney Leah. We have more comments from our teachers here, no, from Ms. Nunag and Sir Ray. I will just consolidate their comments. No? Sabi nila, yung sa J1 pa rin, mukhang talagang malaking issue ang J1 dito. Sabi nila, it's more than always not a cultural exchange program. J1s obviously fill in job vacancies. Employers don't even know the complexities of visa processes and will not explain to just like the recruits themselves who were abused, lured, trafficked in the process. So the main problem is in the act, which is the recruitment, the means, which is through fraud and deception, and exploitative purpose. Ang sabi rin ni Sir Ray Dacol, J1 visa is now being used as a pathway for trafficking, copying teachers, students, especially the HRM and THRM. So we are appealing to the POE and the Philippine government. So yun, ang sabi rin ng isang teacher, they want assistance for students in Texas who are out of jobs because of the pandemic and they are J1 visa holders. So these are the comments of our teachers. We proceed with the last two questions because we're running out of time. We're very sorry. We hope we could have more time. Isa dito is what are the interventions sa LGU levels as asked by our welfare officer. At ang isa pang question ng isang teacher is ni Levy, anong mga specific massive information campaign to make sure that human trafficking is minimized? I will answer the question of Levy and Ma'am Levy and the rest. This is one of the ways by which we could actively campaign against trafficking, human trafficking, and illegal recruitment. We're holding a lot of webinars, making use of social media, and we are also trying to mobilize all our Philippine leaders to join us in the campaign. That's why we had this, so that we can determine easily at first instance the red flags regarding illegal recruitment and trafficking, and you could immediately report to us, and if we can prosecute if it is possible, and we could report to the agencies in the Philippines and have all those responsible blacklisted, prosecuted. So those are the ways, and we are open to more suggestions from our PhilCom leaders on how to really address the issue of trafficking. So yun yung question na hindi pa na-address. The last question coming from welfare officer na ano ba ang LGU interventions as if you know from IACAT and Miss Attorney Ria.
From sige. From yung sa J1 visa po na na-abuse na, kung meron po kayong complainants, please dalhin nyo lang po sa Polo. Alam na po ng labor attaché kung anong gagawin, kukunin po ang inyong statements. At sila yung Polo na po yung mag-endorse sa PUA at magpa-file. Kami po yung magpa-file sa PUA at kung kinakailangan mag-file ng criminal case, pwede po yun. No? So, ang means po dyan talaga is first approach the Polo po na ganun po yung sitwasyon na nasa-circumvent po ang J1 visa at nagkakaroon na po ng element din ng illegal recruitment na, no? Especially yung nag-iiba na yung terms and conditions, hindi na pala cultural exchange. So please approach your Polo. Yun po lagi. At si Polo po, bahala na po siya na mag-endorse sa amin sa PUA because we cannot reach you there eh. Hindi po namin kinukuha na statement. So usually po, Polo po ang nag-collate po na kumukuha ng inyong mga complaint or yung inyong mga complaint affidavit, no? So yun pong gagawa niyan. I-report niyo po sa Polo. Kasi po, ang Polo po ang alter ego ng gobyerno natin. So, the embassy and Polo, sila po yung alter ego. Sila po yung una yung tatakbuhan. Kung magpaparepatriate kayo sa Polo po, tatakbo kayo doon. So, si Labad Angin po ang inyong mother, nanay na dapat tatakbuhan. No? Tutulong po yan sa inyo. All you have to do is reach out to her. Opo. Ano pa po ba? May na-miss mo ba?
LGU interventions daw, Attorney May, if you can, interventions from the local government unit level to prevent incidents of illegal recruitment and trafficking in persons.
Actually, no, all LGUs, lahat naman ng local government units, no, are actually under the law. They should have their own interagency councils against trafficking in persons. So meaning, meron dapat silang council, no? Bawat city, no? Bawat probinsya that should fight against trafficking in persons. So like for example, in Region 11, no? We have the Region 11 IACAT. So kami po yung region po namin, we have as members the different LGUs in Region 11. So nagde-disseminate po sila ng information campaigns against trafficking in persons. At the same time, kasali dito sa mga information dissemination nila, no, yung mga red flag indicators, ano ba yung dapat bantayan para maprotektahan yung kanilang mga constituents. No? So under the law, actually, the LGUs really have a vital role to play in the fight against human trafficking and also against illegal recruitment. Yung question as to J1 visa could be a trafficking in persons, posible po siya, no? Especially if ang mangyayari pala is mabaon ka sa utang. So you would end up actually working just to pay off debts, and then you weren't aware in the first place na ganun pala kalaki yung dapat mong bayaran. But since napasubo ka na lahat, nandun ka na sa ibang bansa, you are forced to work because otherwise, wala ka nang mapadala sa pamilya mo, hindi mo pa mabayaran yung utang mo. So that could also be a form of human trafficking. Or aside from sa trabaho na pinamin sa'yo, meron pa palang other jobs na you have to do, or you have to work longer hours pala than promised. So that could also be an indicator that you are in a trafficking situation.
Thank you, Attorney Ria and Attorney May. I think those are the last two questions that were raised. And before we end, let me just briefly, I promise very briefly, answer the issue of J1 because Attorney Ria also mentioned that Polo should be taking care of this. Let me just inform everyone, no? And we have been also in contact with our teachers that the Philippine Embassy in Washington has a technical working group, is a working group that has been in constant meeting and communication with the State Department of the United States to address all the concerns raised on the issue of our J1 teachers and other J1 visa holders. And in fact, there are a lot of resolutions already reached in as far as the technical working group is concerned. With respect to our teachers, we just in February, there was already a guidance directive issued by the State Department on which fees should be assessed against our teachers, what are the responsibilities of the visa sponsors, who should be the actors, and how to prevent our teachers from being abused. On the side of the Philippine government too, the CFO, together with our technical working group in the US with the Philippine Embassy, are finalizing the guidelines on accrediting our local representatives. So, these local representatives na nagre-recruit ng mga teacher, kailangan accredited na at hindi pwedeng dapat sumingil ng mas nakarami at mas mahal kasi merong directives na. So, we also enjoin the teachers to participate in this effort and in this process. So, that's for the J1 issue. Thank you very much. And since we are really out of time, we would like to, although belatedly, we would like to recognize the presence and active participation of all our PhilCom leaders, from our teachers in DC. We have teachers in Texas. We also have our PhilCom leaders in Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, may nakalimutan ba ako? Turks and Caicos, Jamaica, ayan. Sorry, Jamaica. Lahat ng mga PhilCom leaders na nandito, maraming salamat sa inyong pakikisama sa amin sa gabi, sa umaga ngayong webinar natin. And we promise that this is not the last. This will be a part of the series of education seminars that we will be holding in our effort to battle against illegal trafficking and trafficking in persons, being an international phenomena. The international phenomena they are. So we hope that we can join us again. On behalf of our Polo team, we have Assistant Labor Joji Borromeo. We have our Welfare Officer Josephine Tobia. We have Oliver Flores, Eliza Lucido, and we have Miriam Nicolas. And we also are joined by our Philippine Embassy through DCM Renevilla, and with the able and consistent help of our public diplomacy section. Maraming salamat, Ms. Darrell Artates at Mark de la Vega. We end this webinar series with a promise that this is not the end, this is a beginning and a more potent force against illegal trafficking, illegal recruitment and trafficking in persons. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga, magandang hapon at magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Yun. All right. First time. Good practice. Thank you. Thank you for your time, guys. So, let's see tomorrow. Magiging maayos ang lahat. So, thank you guys for joining me tonight. And good night po sa Cayman and good morning po dyan sa Philippines. Magandang... Okay na po. Thank you.